You have a secret you would take to your grave. A password. A number. A thing you did once and told no one. You think it will die with you quietly, and that will be the end of it. But there was a man who tried exactly that. He carried the location of the richest gold in America into his own death, and more than 100 years later, people are still climbing into the desert to die looking for it. His name was Jacob Waltz. He was born in Germany around 1810, and everyone in Arizona called him the Dutchman, though he was never Dutch at all. It was just easier to say than Deutsch. He came to America in the 1840s, chasing the same thing everyone was chasing: gold. He drifted through the goldfields for 20 years and found almost nothing worth keeping. He was, by most accounts, a wandering failure. Then in 1870, at the Vulture mine near Wickenburg, he met another German, a man named Jacob Weiser. Two Jacobs, two immigrants, two men who had spent their whole lives arriving too late to every strike. They formed what one account calls a loose partnership, and together they went looking for something older and stranger than any working mine. They had heard the story of the Peralta gold. Decades earlier, a wealthy family from northern Mexico had supposedly worked a rich vein deep in the Superstition Mountains, east of Phoenix. In 1848, their last mule train, heavy with ore, was ambushed. Almost everyone was killed. The mine's location vanished with the dead. For 20 years it had been nothing a rumor whispered in saloons. Waltz and Weiser decided to go find a ghost. And somehow they did. Nobody agrees on how. One version says the two men saved the life of a Peralta descendant, and he thanked them by drawing a map. Another says they simply stumbled onto it. A darker version says they found two Mexican miners already working the vein and killed them for it. The stories fork here, and they never come back together. But whatever happened out in those mountains, the two Jacobs walked back into Phoenix with gold. Real gold. Or so rich that an assayer at the Vulture mine would later call it the finest he had ever examined. They started spending. In a small frontier town, two failed prospectors suddenly buying rounds with gold nuggets does not go unnoticed. People watched them. People wondered where the gold was coming from. And here the story turns. The way these stories always turn, on the one thing men cannot share, because at some point Jacob Weiser disappeared. He simply was not there anymore, and Waltz never gave a clear answer about what had happened to him. Some said Weiser was killed by Apaches out near the mine, and that may be true. The Superstitions were dangerous country, but there was another story, and it spread quietly, and it never went away. That out there in the mountains, alone with more gold than either of them had ever dreamed of, one Jacob had killed the other. Think about what that means. They had failed together for years. They had chased the same ghost across the same desert. They had finally, impossibly, won. And the winning was the thing that ended them. Because a secret worth a fortune is only safe if you are the only one who knows it. Waltz never confirmed it. He never denied it either. He just went back to living alone. And whenever his gold ran low, he would vanish into the Superstitions and come back with more. If anyone asked where the mine was, he gave a different answer every time. If anyone tried to follow him, he lost them in the rock. For 20 years, he was the only living man who knew the way. You would think a man like that would eventually let the secret slip. Everyone does, near the end. But Waltz held it longer than anyone believed a person could. By 1891, he was old and sick. A flood had destroyed his home, and a neighbor named Julia Thomas had taken him in and was caring for him as pneumonia settled into his chest. And here, finally, is the moment everyone had waited 2 decades for. The dying man, the caretaker, the deathbed. He began to tell her where the mine was. He gave her clues, landmarks, directions. But even now, even dying, he could not quite let it go. He kept warning her that the mine was hard to find even if you knew exactly where to look. On the morning of October 25, 1891, Jacob Waltz died in that house in Phoenix. Under his bed, they found a candle box holding nearly 50 pounds of the richest gold or anyone had ever seen. And the directions he gave. Julia Thomas followed them. She searched. She found nothing. Whatever the old man saw so clearly in his fading mind did not survive the trip out of it. The words were there. The gold was not. Here is the part that should stop you cold. The mine has never been found. Not in 130 years. Not by Julia Thomas, not by the dozens who came after her, not by the thousands who still hike into those mountains every single year with maps and metal detectors and dreams. And it has not been harmless. Since the stories began, roughly 40 people have died or disappeared in that wilderness, chasing a dead man's secret. In 1931, a prospector named Adolph Ruth went in looking for it. Months later, they found his skull. It had 2 holes in it. So what did the Dutchman actually leave behind? Not a map. Not directions that work. He left a wound in the earth that keeps pulling people in and swallowing them. He guarded his secret so well that he beat everyone, including the people he tried to help at the very end. The gold is still out there, or it never existed, and the not knowing is exactly what makes it deadly. There is a lesson buried in those mountains, and it is not about gold. It is about what happens to a person who decides that a secret is worth more than the people beside them. Waltz won. He kept it. And keeping it cost him his partner, cost him his last years, cost him any chance of being known by anyone. He died the only person on earth who knew the truth, and he took it into the ground, and the truth was worth nothing there. You have a secret you would take to your grave. Most of us do. But look at the Dutchman before you decide to carry it that far. Because a secret you never share does not stay a treasure. It becomes a hole in the ground that other people fall into long after you are gone.